prepare yourself.
The opinions of the host and guests on this show are exclusively just that, opinions. That means that they shouldn't be the cause of your state of being offended. Why does everybody get so butthurt?
Okay, let's go. Ready, go!
Sit down, shut up, and pay attention.
Damn!
This is the Rants of Izzo Show with your host, Dominic Izzo, from porn to politics. We touch every third rail we can find. You might want to put your headphones on so your mom can't hear this. It's been called the most entertaining 60 minutes on the internet, and it starts now. Let's do this.
All right, kids, we're back. Rants of Izzo Show here, but it's a special production. This is the Conversations, where I like to have people on that I find just fascinating. I mean, these are the kind of conversations that I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about porn, but if those come up in the conversation, that's always a good thing, especially with people who are in those fields. But the Conversations is a it's a Spreely production that I started doing a couple months ago, where I've had people on that are in certain types of fields that I'm like, damn, this is awesome, or professions or passions or whatnot. And we just have awesome organic conversations with no real agenda. Ali Gilbert sitting in today, the queen of men's health. How are you? What's going on? Appreciate you joining today.
I'm great. I love your intro. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks to Jen Torres for that one, and the production crew over at Spreely.com. They did that for us. I love that one. We get right into it, right? We hit the ground running. We jump into the pool, and that's it. We're going to talk today about who Ali Gilbert is, what men's health is, why you're the queen of men's health, and all that shit, and it's going to be great. Ali Gilbert, it's a 360-degree view of who you are. Who are you?
So the Queen of Men's Health is not a self-proclaimed title. That was actually given to me by my buddy Alan Cosgrove, because he was like, you're the only female that I know who is in the world of men's health doing what you're doing, talking about boners and testosterone and all the things that go along with that. But who I really am is a fitness professional, and I run a coaching business called Silverback Coaching by Ali Gilbert. And we have a team of myself and 3 other coaches, and we focus on men's health, and we integrate hormone optimization into our fitness and nutrition, as well as personal development, to turn guys into action figures and the most elite versions of themselves.
That's fantastic. A couple different things I'm going to ask, right? Because it's social media. I have to take this very, very, very carefully. There is zero. I am in zero way comparing my weekend warrior hobby bullshit to your profession. So I don't want you to think I'm even remotely disrespecting you in that. I was in the gym industry for a little bit. I owned a gym. I owned a little 2,700 square foot gym, blah, blah, blah. I was a NASM certified trainer during my years as a cop, and it was friggin' great. And I hate the industry. The industry is filled by, like the 3 jobs that I've had, bartender, gym owner, and law enforcement. It's like I'm supposed to be a fucking psychologist for people. It blows me away. The gym industry, really, with this social media explosion, because it wasn't as bad back years and years and years ago when I owned a gym, like 2013 is when I got my gym, 2013 to 2017. Everybody and their mother is an expert in the fitness industry. And I can't stand kids who will go up and they can eat cake, ice cream, and pizza and claim they get ripped and all this shit. And I'm 49. It's like, you don't know what I'm going through. The two factors that I want to be like, all right, well, what makes you the fucking queen of men's health thing on is your gender. You're a woman. And I have a theory of why you are the queen of men's health, and then your age. So the first thing I have to ask, because you already identified yourself as a woman, is how old are you?
I'm 42, so I'll be 43 in October.
So you're not, you don't have the 21-year-old you can go up there and just walk on a treadmill and burn fat, and then all of a sudden you're a fitness expert. Does that, being that this is your industry, is that shit, I mean, do you like that shit or no? Or do you tolerate it?
I know what you're talking about, because I train people in person, like literally I started doing that in college. So I entered college in 99. My major was exercise science, which people don't think you need to have a degree in the field at all anymore. And that's a whole debate in itself. But that's when I started working with people one-on-one. And I did that up until 2016 when I trained people online and in person. And then 2020 just made it easy to go 100% online. But I do know what you're talking about because we didn't have social media. Like we had the forums online where people would debate and discuss stuff, and then in-person events for continuing education and everything. But now it's like there's so much saturation, and there's a lot of people that get their information from social, from YouTube, and there's more fucking arguments about nutrition and the best way to do this and that or whatever. And literally losing fat and gaining muscle is really not that difficult. It's just something that gets complicated by people arguing all the time. And that part drives me crazy. And I assure when we bring on clients, all my coaches, we're all in our 40s. One of my guys is 50. We all have plenty of experience in person and online. But nowadays, you are getting coaches that are in their early 20s that have not even trained anybody in person at all. And they got their education through online certifications and YouTube and stuff like that. And I find it so interesting because I'm like, I don't know if I would trust a car mechanic who never worked on a car, yet just read about cars and learned about cars and then displayed himself as an expert on social media for working on cars, but yet has never actually been under one or in one.
Yeah, we don't really welcome common sense to the podcast here, but I appreciate that. All right, let's talk about men's health. It's a generalized question, but why is it so important? We have it is health in general is one thing, but we're taking on the niche of men's health. I'm asking questions that I emotionally already know the answer to, right? But I want your answer. What I mean by that is men's health is important in my view because, dude, I'm not the same as I was in my 20s and then 30s and then coming up on 50. Life is different and stress and then the poison I'm putting in my body with food. I never thought that health would be this important and how it dictates everything I do, from putting it, having a piece of bread to instant bloat and then trying this diet and that diet and then TRT. And it is so overwhelming and it's confusing, but the concept is simple. To you, why is men's health such a big passion?
So the way I got into it, I kind of fell into it because with my strength and conditioning background, everybody who majors in that wants to work with athletes, but that field is not one that you're going to be making money in when you get out of college, unless you just go straight to the elite level. So I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, which is a very affluent town that had a lot of the Wall Street guys who lived there and then commuted into New York City. And I was working at a commercial gym and I was training a lot of these guys and they played golf. And I was like, golf is a sport and these guys take this seriously. They want to work hard. They'll pay for it. Like that is their thing. So I was like, I'm going to learn about golf. And I played soccer in college. I had no idea about golf. So I was like on the internet, oh, golf fitness is a thing and there's a certification for it. So I literally went all in on that and became the go-to person in Greenwich for golf fitness. All my clientele consisted of men. So these guys would transition the conversation from how do I hit the ball farther to how do I get abs? How do I get more energy? How do I feel better on the course? How do I last the full 18 without feeling like I got hit by a truck? And obviously the conversation went into nutrition and then goes into sexual performance because they didn't realize that their fatigue, their lack of motivation, their inability to put on muscle or retain muscle well into their 60s, 70s, whatever age, could coincide with low testosterone levels. So I realized nobody's talking about this. And these are like high-level CEOs, CFOs from New York at very big companies, but it was so taboo to talk about, and it still kind of is, but it's getting better. But these guys had no idea. And these are guys who are like, yeah, I have the best doctor for this and the best cardiologist for this. But yet they were being fed misinformation regarding hormones. And suffering the consequences of living with low testosterone. And I was like, holy shit, there is a gap here, because women's health is so openly talked about and everyone accepts menopause as a thing and women going on hormone replacement, but no one talks about men going on testosterone as being something that should happen and is normal. It's more stigmatized with steroids and cheating and guys feeling defeated. And I was like, I don't like this for guys. And as a female who grew up where I joke that I had daddy issues, I was like, I want to help the men and help them feel like themselves, but also to not feel like they had nowhere to go to talk to somebody about this. And being a female, I think I provide that empathetic side where I could talk to them openly about anything. And they really felt that they can confide in me in a lot of these issues. And so I just went down deep rabbit holes, learning everything I could about testosterone and men's physiology, and attending conferences and speaking at medical conferences and building relationships with doctors, just so I could learn how to have these conversations, how to navigate them so other coaches can learn this process. And that was back in 2010.
I want to get into the importance of testosterone and everything else that goes on, but I want to establish that, like, I had to identify, if you look at a lot of women who are involved with men's coaching, like I do know Sarah Moore, who exploded in the last several years. She does men's dating coach. There's you. Any attractive woman who is at the head of the game of a men's category of whatnot always blew me away, because part of me is like, what the fuck do you know about being a man? But then I had to reflect back on what I do know about being a man and how men learn. When we used to teach defensive tactics classes for law enforcement, I've said this a million times, cops are the absolute worst to teach, because when you go to give a defensive tactics course and you're showing somebody, I don't know, whatever handcuff technique you want or X, Y, and Z, every single time there's so much machismo in there in competition, guys go in to tell you what they know, not to learn from you. So I have to start thinking, I wonder if there's always two things for marketing. It's sex and controversy. I have to wonder if, as women, do you play up the fact that I'm a damn good looking woman, I'm attractive, I'm going to attract men visually, sexually, they're going to come in, and then I'm going to use that for my advantage to wind up keeping them with my knowledge? Because that's what the first thing I saw with you is you're extremely attractive. I'm like, damn, here's what do I like about this? Then there's the energy, then there's the attitude, then there's the education. It's like, all right, I take this broad seriously, and I want to hear what she has to say. I have to wonder if that is a defining path that women in power and women of, I would say, seriousness take when men go in, because we want to fuck everything. And then what's going to get us to listen? Oh, this is why we should listen. Do you have that experience? Do men open up to you because the boundaries are blurred, but then they're solidified when you hit them with all the knowledge you have?
I like this question because it's similar to when I get asked about working in a male-dominated industry. So, funny story, like when I started working in a gym, I was 21 when I graduated college. So like 22 years old. And I was one of those girls who, I guess, was just oblivious to me being attractive. So we all have our own insecurities. And I was like, I never thought like, yeah, I'm like the hot chick, because I had long blonde hair at the time, and I would wear like, do you remember those Adidas tearaway pants that were popular?
I still have mine somewhere. They don't fit though.
Yeah. So I wore those with like a regular baggy t-shirt or whatever uniform shirt I had to wear in the gym. And I remember one of my coworkers, another trainer, he was like, Ali, why don't you wear like tight clothes? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you know, there's these pants at the time called So Low, where they were like below the belly button, and you would fold the waistband over, and they were super tight with bell bottoms. And that's what like a lot of the women would wear, because this is before Lululemon. And I was like, those are like leggings. Like, I don't know how to wear those. He's like, trust me. So I was like, okay. So I went shopping, and I didn't wear my soccer pants anymore, and I was wearing the tight pants. And I was like, I guess this is a thing. Like, this is what people want. Like, I was just oblivious to that shit. And then my manager was like, why don't we sell half-hour stretching sessions with you? And of course, I'm like, why the fuck would somebody want to stretch? Like, oh, I'm leaning over them, like pushing their legs, like literally staring at their balls hanging out of their shorts if they're over 70, or, just basically laying on top of these guys, oblivious to like people would actually pay for that. I'm more like, no, they should work hard and like want to train. So I think like unconsciously, or I don't know the word, but I didn't realize that that was something I could take advantage of, but it's not in my integrity to be like, yeah, I'm going to take advantage of people, lure them in with how I look, and then pounce on them with my knowledge. It was more, I had to defy being a somewhat good looking person by proving that I actually had the knowledge behind the blonde hair to show that I can actually get shit done and get them the result they want. Because the guys that I was dealing with, they're the ones, like you said, they know everything. They did not want to show a weakness, but they don't know how to get themselves comfortable taking their shirt off. They don't know how to gain the confidence through a certain look in their physique. They know everything they need to know about investing in real estate and cars and watches and all that shit. They didn't know what I knew. I knew that. So I knew that I could talk to them a certain way when they would say, well, this is what I need, and I know I need to do this diet and blah, blah, blah. And I could say, if those were what you thought you had to do, then why are you coming to me? Because that's obviously not working for you. So that was kind of how I started my career, I guess. Plus the fact that I just related to them a lot easier than the wives that I would train. I'm not into like designer clothing or purses or anything. Like, I'm so not the Greenwich person that the stereotype is. I'm like into sports and, just I dress how I dress, which is not fashion forward. It's like hot pink and camo and whatever. I'm like, I don't know what a Birkin bag is. I barely know what Burberry is. Like, I didn't care about that stuff. So I couldn't relate to them as well as the guys who would talk about cars and sports and golf and stuff like that. So it was just easier to talk to them. Plus, they didn't want to chit chat the whole hour. They just were in there to get work done and, do the thing. So for me, it just came very easy. I didn't feel like I had to prove, like, because I'm a female, they're going to not want to work with me. It was more like, no, why wouldn't they want to work with me?
I'm going to give you credit because I'm very sexist, and I get that too. I could not tell you how many women's self-defense classes I did where it's like, are you going to take this seriously, or are you going to flirt with me the entire time? Your eyes are so blue. What the fuck are you paying me for? So I get that frustration, but then I literally had to stop and look and go, all right, we have to use what we're given. And I started to have to think about the psychology of why would a man listen to a woman, about their health. And then I do know that if I had the exact same knowledge as you do, and I was out there promoting myself, I probably would not have the base that you do, because it would be a pissing match all the time. I think that you do knock down the wall, and guys are not as instantly challenged to wind up shitting all over the information you bring across. So I want to give you that credit. I want to look at, why do men go to women and experts for their fields? Let's talk about testosterone. Generalize. We'll start there. What is testosterone, and why is it so damn important?
So in simple terms, it is the winning hormone for guys. It's what gives them their physical traits. It's what gives them the ability to lead, protect, take decisive action, all those things, and it provides sex drive as well, or contributes to that. And the fact that it has been suppressed, or it's diminishing over the last few decades, is a problem, because it doesn't allow men to not only combat the effects of having predispositions to all-cause mortality, heart issues, cancer, stuff like that, but to operate in the full realm of how a man should with masculinity, which is another topic. It's very important, because men's testosterone levels, the range, if you've ever gotten lab work done, most likely if you've gone to a GP or just it's basic and they do testosterone, they'll say, oh, you're fine. The range for that is massive. And it's based on an average of everyone in the US, whether they're overweight, they're 80 years old, doesn't matter. That's the average. And men should not want to be okay with being told that you are normal. because you want to be optimal. However, your and my dad's and grandfathers, the level of their natural testosterone is now what would be considered high in this arbitrary range, which used to be 350 to 1100, which is already massive enough. Like if I tell you, yo, I squat 350 and then I squat 1100, like that's ridiculous. But that range has been lowered multiple times across different lab companies to satisfy the fact that guys are showing up with lower and lower test levels. And I think like the lowest that I've seen was like 180 something, and then it goes up to like 700, which is
that's
nuts.
That's their standard. 180 is their standard.
Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah. And if you go by insurance, you fall in that range, you're considered fine. Go about your business. And it doesn't matter what age you are. And we have guys in their 20s who are like 220 testosterone, and they're told, well, you're normal. Yet he's highly symptomatic. He can't operate as a man. Can you imagine being 22 years old? You have low confidence. You're not social because of this low confidence. You have no sex drive. God forbid you ever meet a chick or want to actually go out and be social with friends, with girls. Plus, likely sedentary, likely obese, which does contribute to this low testosterone epidemic, because it is an epidemic. And now the society is telling you not to be masculine and not to lead and protect. These guys are so confused. So my heart goes out to them, because I'm like, oh my God, like when I was 22, I was in the bar, in the clubs, and like, you know, these guys had confidence. Like if a guy came up to me and started talking to me, like that is way sexier than him, like, you know, shying away, turning around, or just being passive. But it's the complete opposite now. And even past 2020, like people don't know how to be social anymore, how to have a conversation or any of that. And I know this is like a major tangent, but I feel like it ties in.
That's the point. I'm fine with that. That's the whole point of this. And you're absolutely accurate. Guys don't have the ability or the tools. I say it all the time. When I was 18, you had to go to her locker and you waited till 8th period so that, you know, you could catch the bus afterwards. And then you asked her out. So she rejected you. You know, you didn't have to wait 3-4 hours to deal with that. Now it's a text message. And when you deal with the rejection, you have no idea how to deal with it. So it absolutely blows me away. I got my testosterone checked 10 years ago. And it was just, I went through a blah phase, and I could not believe, because I knew nothing about this. I had always wanted to do gear, steroids, if you will. And I never did. And 39 years old, I go to a doctor that's recommended by me, and he draws my blood. And I'm like, I don't feel it. I go, I could still get an erection anytime I want. I go to the gym. I'm strong because I'm short, all this shit, great. But I'm starting to put this fat around my midsection, and I just don't care. Like my mood, I don't care. I have no passion. It blew me away. He said my free testosterone was 140. And I went, oh, okay. So I started TRT then. The difference is noticeable, but I found out that the difference is better when you actually take care of yourself and you eat right and your diet and you sleep. In the beginning, the first several years, it was just, let's stick the needle in my ass and see how it goes. And, oh, well, I'm still puffy and I'm gaining water, and why do I have boobs now, and blah, 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 and all this shit. It's like, I didn't eat right, and I didn't sleep. You know, I'm getting 6 hours of sleep at night, or this and that shit. Let's talk about the synergy and the necessity of, it's not just testosterone, right? Because the internet clearly says, well, if you stick a needle in your ass, that's all you need. That's it. Is that correct? Or are there more components to men's health with like sleep and food and all that?
Yeah, yes. So let me back up, because you made a great point where you mentioned that you could get an erection, no problem, which is a very crucial statement, because most guys will think to themselves, okay, well, my dick works, so I don't really need to get my testosterone checked. They think they're depressed. They think something's wrong with them because they have all the other symptoms, which is brain fog, like you said, not caring, like it's just this apathetic attitude about everything, which doesn't allow them to show up as their best self for their family, for their profession, in the gym. It's
I don't mean to
like,
interrupt you, but what I thought that was wisdom and maturity. I thought, okay, I'm not the same knee-jerk, and I wasn't that impulsive younger, but the older I got, I attributed it to you ever hear the old bull and the young bull joke?
Mm-hmm.
So that I thought, well, shit, I'm approaching 40. I'm in my young bull stage. Somebody can come up on me and, push me. I'll be like, dude, whatever. I don't care. That's what I thought that was. But looking back, no, that it was, I was going to say it's a form of depression. I literally think it was.
Yeah. And the signs of depression align very closely with low T. So quite often guys think, well, I'm 33 or 39 or 28 and I'm too young to have low T and I can get a boner. So what is the issue with me? And then they get handed an antidepressant because sometimes they do get dismissed. Like I've heard such ridiculous things where doctors were like, we don't need to test your testosterone because you look fit or you're too young or you have a beard. Like all these statements that have nothing to do with how someone might be feeling, what they've experienced, all these things that can contribute to low T. And then guys are not going to resist what they're told because it's not something they're informed about. They're just wondering, why am I on this island by myself? Nobody else could possibly feel this way because you're not going to talk about this in the locker room with your friends. Guys don't socially talk about this stuff. Women do. So they kind of internalize it because if they said that they were feeling any type of weakness, it's considered weakness and it's not looked upon as favorable. So they're not likely to talk about that to make it known that, hey, this is an issue. But now we're hopefully getting the message across to guys at any age, dealing with what you described and what many men described, even though they may be younger, is still a huge problem with a lot of them that they're struggling with. And they should get their labs done at any age. And I forgot your original question.
So I want to go into food and sleep because something I noticed. So I'm irresponsible when it comes down to my TRT. I do 9 months on and 3 months off, and I go cold turkey. And I no PCT, a post psychotherapy for anybody who's wondering. And I always notice it's every single time. It's only been three times I've done this, and towards the end of a year-long cycle, if you will, when I get to it, I'm always like, man, I don't know how I feel. And I'm very irresponsible about my diet. I did not take it seriously until this year. And I always thought that the testosterone would put me in that state of like, grr, I can go take on the fucking world. And it didn't. I have noticed, so my question with sleep and nutrition, I have noticed that I could be off of all gear. It's out of my system for 3 months. And when I change my diet and I sleep better, my testosterone is probably in the fucking toilet, trying whatever natural levels I would have to think were coming back up. I feel mentally and clearly amazing. Like, wow, this is what the testosterone was supposed to be for me, wasn't it? So that to me says, man, there's got to be some truth too to proper eating and sleeping the right way. So when you put all three of those components together, eating, sleeping, and testosterone, how unstoppable can a man put his base as?
I wish I could somehow get them to feel that before they start with us, because with our coaching, it's all of that. But the message that I really have to get across is they will see testosterone as a panacea. Some guys will. And if testosterone worked that way, bodybuilders wouldn't need to go to the gym. They could just sit on the couch and inject testosterone. And testosterone does not work unless the person works. And the thing is that replacement dosage, which is much lower than what bodybuilders are doing, literally is only replacing where you biologically should be. So that being said, in order to live at the levels that you should be with testosterone replacement, you should already be addressing the lifestyle factors that basically earn you the right to live at those levels, because those optimal levels are based off a leaner, sleeping, healthy male. The problem when a guy is overweight, abusing alcohol, not sleeping, very sedentary, it's not going to go very well for him. And the way that we frame our coaching is so simplistic, because I talk about this in all my lectures. I'm like, listen, men, just like women, get confused. Where do I start with diet? Where do I start with exercise? It's overwhelming. There's so much misinformation, conflicting info, people arguing. If you can see your abs, then you know you're already trending or you are very lean. Most guys will start to see their abs around 15% body fat. So I don't even care if you go do a DEXA or InBody or get your body fat tested. I can just tell by looking at you what direction we need to go. If you are more towards 20% body fat or higher, which means you may have some man boobs, you may have the love handles, the midsection fat, and the lower back fat that a lot of guys get, then we take a completely different approach. And that approach would be a lower carb diet, because your body is not handling glucose or sugar very well, or carbs. We want to get the body fat off. Why do we want to do that when we're starting testosterone? When you have a lot of high body fat, basically body fat's the most inflammatory tissue that exists. So it's going to create cytokine reactions. When you add an exogenous hormone to a body that is suppressing it because it is so unhealthy, a man may not feel so great. And that's when he may see higher blood pressure, higher water retention, all the negative things that if he doesn't address his diet, his sleep, and his nutrition, he's not going to feel much better. Granted, it might get him off the couch and give him some motivation, but these are things that you still have to address in order to earn the right to live at the optimal levels that you want to live at, which is around usually like 800-900 plus for most men. So if we get your body fat down, get the inflammation down, allow you to handle carbohydrates a lot better, allow you to actually handle exercise and just living, testosterone might be a more pleasant experience for you. And it's actually going to work a lot better because it's not fighting a body that's resisting its presence in it already because it is so inflamed and so unhealthy. Does that make sense?
Fucking ridiculously. When I'm terrified of food, and which is I'm Italian. My whole life has been food. Carbs have always, I never believed in the whole gluten shit and this and that. This last 18 months, I have never experienced bloat as bad as the last 18 months. And I'm like, where the hell did this stuff come from? And I have to wonder if there's like that threshold. I know that like you can become a type 2 diabetic by pushing your body's threshold to tolerate carbs. So I've tried, and I enjoy that carnivore diet, but I'm not going to lie. I want to enjoy my life too. You kind of said something. Can you, and I'm not asking to diagnose, but in a general sense, can a 49-year-old man redo his diet and teach his body how to absorb and utilize carbs again? Or is it a threshold you're like, dude, you're fucked, get used to aging, yeah, you're going to be on carnivore diet, and now you got to teach your body to use fats for fuel instead of carbs? Or can you train yourself to go back the other way? Because it's confusing as fuck. I swore that for my 50th birthday during that year, I would do a powerlifting meet. And now I'm like, I'm not eating carbs. So my head's going, how the fuck are you going to push weight? You have carbs in your system. So it is overwhelming and it's very intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, for powerlifting, carbs are not necessarily super essential because it works off an energy system that is creatine phosphate, and basically you can go low carb and be a powerlifter. But they are useful in order to have the energy and get stronger and all that. But it does work better for guys when they are leaner. And you've heard of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes is a great example, because testosterone is a great medication for type 2 diabetics. And actually, I would say testosterone paired with a GLP-1, which is Ozempic or Mounjaro, can be life-changing for men who are truly very overweight or have type 2 diabetes. But to get back to, can you like retrain somebody's body to handle that? Obviously, everyone's individual. However, most of our clients are 35 plus, and these guys are handling carbs better than they ever have. Testosterone alone will help the body handle carbs a lot better, but getting the body fat down. And the way that that works is by doing stuff that men hate doing, which is aerobic exercise, because they think if I do low intensity cardio, my muscles are going to fall off. I'm going to become weak. I'm going to look like a marathon runner, like all those things. And I'm like, no, cardio is actually anabolic. And of course, that adds to the confusion, but I'll lay it out for you. So, if a guy does not have a good platform of aerobic conditioning, meaning he walks up a flight of stairs and his legs are burning and he feels like he needs a post-workout shake just from that, that shows that the level of conditioning is not where it needs to be. And if you go back to ninth grade bio class, when we all learned about the powerhouse of the cell, which is the mitochondria, in the mitochondria, that's where carbs and fats go to be made into energy. The best way to increase the amount and the efficiency of mitochondria is through aerobic training. Coincidentally, it's the best way to also lower blood pressure, lower resting heart rate, and increase somebody's ability to tolerate carbs. So if somebody is overweight, they have a very high resting heart rate, they have very high blood pressure, they're always stressed out, they are burning more carbs at rest, and their body is in a constant catabolic state. So it's breaking stuff down. Because it's breaking stuff down, it's hard to store carbs in the muscle. That storage form of carbs is called glycogen. That's what gives muscles their hard, like bubbly look. If somebody can't store glycogen, they're constantly breaking stuff down. There's a ton of glucose surrounding the mitochondria that's not going in it. That is simply put as insulin resistance, and very, very similar to insulin resistance. It's like if you go into Dunkin' Donuts, you love the smell. But if you worked there and you're always around it, you're not really going to notice it. And that's what your cells are going through when there's tons of glucose. It's like, cool, I don't need to let you in and turn you into energy and make sure that somebody stays lean because there's so much of this, I don't know what to do with it. So the easiest way to lower the load of all this glucose is to lower carbs. That gives the body a chance to now add more mitochondria to shove the fatty acids and shove the glucose that's already in the body into there. So then when body fat lowers, heart rate comes down, blood pressure comes down, they're not breaking stuff down so much anymore. Then it can enter the cell like it should. Then they feel a lot better. Inflammation goes down. They don't feel like they're bloated or watery, because this is where people describe, I can't do carbs because it makes me fat, it makes me feel puffy, it makes me feel watery, because their body doesn't know what to do with them. But when you get leaner, then we can shove carbs in. So we kind of do things backwards, where most people will cut carbs really low and add a ton of cardio as someone gets leaner. We do all the cardio up front. So we'll do 8 to 12 weeks of aerobic work, which is literally Netflix cardio, mindless, on the elliptical, whatever somebody's choice is. Get that out of the way, lower carbs first. Then as a man approaches 15% body fat or leaner, we raise carbs and we take cardio away. Because when someone's very lean and they're in the best position to handle carbs, why would you take that away from them and take away their body's ability to store it in the muscle so they get that hard, dense, bubbly look? So guys will cut carbs way too far and cut calories so low that they do get leaner, but they feel flat and they don't feel like they have the bubbly muscles. So they think they're fat because we store water in the same places we store fat. So they feel like they're actually adding fat. So then they cut calories again and they add more cardio. Then their testosterone is suppressed because their body's like, well, fuck you. You're not giving me enough energy to survive. Procreation goes out the door. So say goodbye to solid boners. We just need to keep you alive. And that's the whole cycle of where men feel like I'm leaner, but I feel skinny fat still. So I need to add muscle. But when they try to add muscle, then they raise calories too quickly and then they add fat too quickly, freak out, go back to cutting calories and carbs, and it's this vicious cycle.
Fuck you.
I'll sit up now.
Fuck you. You just answered a question because you just defined me, where I was going to say one of the biggest problems we have in today is I don't need a coach. I don't need a professional, and I'm going to jump on a fad diet, right? And I was going to ask you, sell yourself to people for why they need you. And I'm going to tell you the roller coaster of what you just described was fucking beyond accurate. I don't like fads. I mean, you're old enough to remember the Atkins diet. To me, that's what carnivore seems like. And everybody is ranting and raving about the carnivore diet. I got instantaneous results with carnivore. First night, no acid reflux. Every single fucking night of the week, based on how my diet is, I'm up in the bathroom fucking, like, my throat is on fire because of acid reflux. First day, gone. Sleep, I could not believe how good I slept. Waking up in the morning, actually liking the world, dealing with people with a good mood, and then no bloat, and yeah, down 15 pounds in 4 weeks. Pretty impressive. But what you just said then is you hit that 15-pound loss, pants fit better, no bloat, my stomach is flat. Holy shit, I could see some little teeny tiny cuts. All right, now instead of 1 pound of ground beef for eating all day, let's go to 3. Because clearly you got to increase your protein like crazy because you're back in the gym. And then it's in way to say you feel like shit again. You just sold the importance why it is to have expert professional guidance. That was fucking dead on fantastic. It's incredible.
Well, I've done it enough times, but also I will say, like, I've had my own coach for 7 years, and we do get a lot of guys that are like, I know what to do in the gym, but obviously if you know how to work on your car, yet you still need stuff that needs attention that's beyond your scope, you would hire a professional just like you would in any other industry. So nothing beats the ability to outsource your entire health in the way that we help guys so that you don't have to worry about it. Just like if you're doing Instacart or you have a cleaning service for your house, like, this buys you more time to dedicate to something else that you're good at. This is something that if you put it in our hands, you don't have the ability to try to negotiate with yourself based on what the scale says that day, what your mood is, or, oh my God, I don't know if this is working. Don't worry. Let us worry about that stuff because we can direct you. Because what you described happens quite often where, carnivore might be the right approach, especially dealing with some of the GI issues that you were experiencing. But because it works so well, a lot of guys will just try to live on that. And then a lot of the issues I was discussing before start to come to fruition. So how do we navigate that? Because if you tried to add 250 grams of carbs tomorrow, you would probably feel awful because you took away the enzymes that digest carbs from your body going carnivore. So it has to be a slower titration. And there's certain things that you have to look for in body composition and in response in your training and everything that would dictate how fast you can take somebody's carbs back up. Because your body downregulated those enzymes. It was like, oh, we're not getting carbs, so we don't have to digest them. So we'll put that to the side. And then all of a sudden an influx of carbs and it gets overwhelmed. And it's like, oh shit, I got to start making this enzyme to break these down. And in the meantime, it's going to make you feel bloated and feel gross. So that's why when people go low carb for a really long time, or they try to do strict keto and then come back to carbs, and then they get bloated, they feel watery, and then they gain like 5 pounds overnight, they're like, well, carbs don't work. And so then they try to mainline and white knuckle their way through living very low carb, which is difficult if you're extremely active.
It's overwhelming and it's terrified. I want a brainless system, right? And I started having real big fucking hatred of food. I love to eat, I love to sleep, and I love to do other shit, right? And the eating, I'm like, fuck this, dude, because I'd eat, and then all of a sudden it's like the insulin crash was insane. I got nothing done during my day. I want to stay on the fad of carnivore for a minute. Is it practical? Is it a fad? Should we enjoy? I enjoy it. I enjoy simple. I can eat the same damn thing every day, but here's where my mind goes fucked up. I can't, because I'm a typical gym meathead. I started lifting at 13 and a half years old, right? That's more than half my life. I've never trained heavy on a no-carb diet. Is it possible? Because I've been on the forums. I'm overwhelmed. I've been on the YouTube channels. People say this, people say that. And I know there's not a one diet fits all, but in a general sense of terms, can males lift heavy, enjoy themselves in the gym on a low-carb, high-fat, high-protein diet, this carnivore diet?
Mark Bell is a great example of somebody who does that. And I don't want to say no, it's not possible. I am not someone that attaches dogmatic approaches to certain things, except when it comes to veganism. But of course, that's another.
They're fucking psycho, dude.
Yeah, that's another discussion. But like, you know, if someone comes to us eating a certain way and it worked for them, and it's sustainable, I'm okay with that. If they have a certain goal they want to achieve that may require adding carbohydrates because they're training a certain way or they're feeling completely gassed out, then yes, we may convince them to start to add carbs. Quite often though, people are like, I did keto, I did carnivore, I did whatever, and it worked really well. But yet they've rebounded or something happened to where, okay, if it works so well, then why aren't we doing that now? And, you know, I don't throw this in someone's face. I more want to understand, because on the other side, if someone comes to us with already self-limiting beliefs, as in carbs do not work for me, or if they hurt themselves deadlifts I can't do, like subconsciously, there is already a trigger there. So we're not going to force someone to do something that they're very resistant to. However, we will educate as to why we may want to consider this approach. So yes, somebody can do very well on it, but the question I always ask, is this a sustainable way for you to live the rest of your life? And if the answer is yes, cool. Why would I take away something that you enjoy doing, that you know you feel good on? Blood work looks great. There's no issues. If there's no issues, there's no reason to switch somebody to what I feel might be better just because that's my opinion, because we always want clients to eat in the way that they enjoy. And I will tell you 99% of the time, it is higher protein than they're taking in. It's lower fat than most guys are taking in. And it's going to eventually be higher carbs than they're used to, for all the reasons that we went over earlier. And they feel better because carbs are the quickest source of energy. Like when you're under duress and you're fight or flight and you got to answer the bell, like, yes, carbs are what your body's going to reach for first. But we need to make sure protein's high enough, and then fat is moderate. So if you feel good eating carnivore and that's going to work for you, cool. If there comes a point where you're like, I'm sick of this, I want to eat more carbs, we can visit that as well. It's very similar to a cyclic keto diet where 5 days a week, somebody's, you know, quote keto, and then on the weekends, they add carbs to refill their glycogen stores so they have the energy to train. So there's many different ways to approach it. The issue with the labels of the diets is with the rules that it comes with. So, you know, Atkins had their own rules. South Beach had their own rules. Atkins and South Beach are just different versions of a keto diet, which has been around since the 1800s. It's first established by Dr. Banting in Sweden. So it's been around forever, but of course now it's like a new thing. You know, we've been through paleo, we've been through the celery juice, we've been through eat every 3 hours, otherwise your muscles will fall off, to, well, you could actually eat one meal a day, or you don't have to eat at all and you can eat every other day. Like literally there's so many. It's so
overwhelming. I was talking to somebody else a while ago. I had a bodybuilder friend when I was 22 and he yells at me and he goes, "Hey, you shouldn't drink cold water." And I go, "Why?" He goes, "Well, because when you put that ice water in your system, it's going to shock you. You should." And then months and months later was, "No, I've changed my views. You actually have to drink the cold water because your body's going to burn more calories trying to heat it up." And what the fuck is this? Now we have these trends, and that's a good segue. I want to talk about the trends that everybody's on. Cold plunge. More specifically, since it's testosterone, and that's the defining male hormone there. What are your views on things like cold plunge? Or guys are like, "Man, I don't want I'm too afraid to stick a needle in me. So I'm going to sun my balls, or I'm going to do heavy squats because that's going to release testosterone. Or here's a supplement, or liver. I'm going to eat a lot of liver on this. What are your thoughts when it comes down to explosive internet trending fads and men's elevated levels of testosterone naturally?
So with the internet trends, I personally have never tried a cold plunge. I don't know why. I have friends and clients who have one at their house. They love it. I'm okay with that because I know that we're controlling everything else. They are nailing diet, training, everything else. If you seek cold plunge as like, this is the one thing that's going to bring me health, I would argue that there's probably other things that we have to address as well. But when I was in the training room for soccer in college, we had contrast baths. Like this has been around also forever and ever. So I don't know exactly what made it like set on fire lately with
Hoff,
obviously
the guy, I don't know if he's German, but he goes into the lakes of his country and he does it. And it's, I've never done a cold plunge. I have no desire to. I get the effect. You jump in, you feel fucking invigorated and great. But there's something that I don't think it's a catch-all for, hey, I'm going to lose 50 pounds by cold plunging every day. I highly doubt that.
No, because before that it was cryotherapy, and then, listen, if people want to try it, that's fine. Like I'm not going to be somebody who's going to shit on something that they want to do. I will just more educate as to this is what it does, and will this get to where you want to be? If you want to use it as a ritual every morning and it wakes you up, have at it. Like I probably, if I wasn't such a baby, like I'd probably do it in the morning because it can wake you up. But I choose to slam energy drinks instead because that's who I am. So with those trends, it's more, here we go. And a lot of them are just recycled and things coming back around. Or it's based on research that scientists or pseudoscientists choose to talk about on their podcasts.
Gym bros.
Media. And then it becomes a thing.
Sunning your balls or heavy squats. I was always told heavy squats will increase your testosterone by 200%. And then now it's get outside, open your legs, sun your balls. Obviously, there's every you get like out here, Frank Thomas, who's a famous Chicago White Sox guy. He endorses a testosterone boosting. So it's is there validity to these testosterone elevating things, or is it just,
So lifting weights does increase testosterone, but it's only acute. So yes, there's an elevation in heavy, grindy compound lifts. Like there's a hormonal elevation every time you lift weights. With the heavy stuff, like deadlifts, squats, stuff that is like, 6 reps or under, you're going to get a release of testosterone. You're going to get a release of the stress hormones. When you do more metabolic work, huffy puffy work, shorter rest periods, you're going to release a lot of cortisol, a lot of growth hormone, noradrenaline, adrenaline, and a little bit of testosterone. There's always going to be elevations of hormones with lifting, but then it comes back down. Part of the reason why after training, people eat carbs and protein is because your body's very glucose sensitive after training, and it's easy to shove the carbs into the muscle, but also insulin brings down cortisol. So insulin opposes cortisol, brings it down. We don't want it elevated the rest of the day. So after training, after we've stressed ourselves out, let's calm down and recover. So there are elevations in hormones, but it does not last all the time, but it can increase the signal so that every time you do train, it's a positive thing for your body. Those work very similar to test boosters where, yes, on paper, they may increase testosterone. Is it enough that you're going to feel? Not really. And is it something that's going to stay there? No. They're just a bunch of expensive herbs that if you bought them singularly, can't speak, but if you bought them off the shelf as each individual ingredients, it would cost a lot less. I have a great slide like in my talks where I talk about boosting testosterone naturally. And I have a picture of Frank Thomas sliding up, holding the bottle of Nugenics because all that shit is trash. Like I get asked about that still because I'm like, oh my God, these are still a thing because they get marketed so well to guys. Like, and I'm just like, wow, like I would totally understand that. The fact is, if you need testosterone, you need to take testosterone. There's no other way around it. If a diabetic needs insulin, we're not going to say, hey, let's eat 3 grams per pound of body weight in protein to go through this overly mechanical, complicated process to turn into glucose. That's not the answer. Like, that's what people are trying to do when they go on things like clomiphene and HCG and all these things instead of testosterone. If you need testosterone, your labs indicate that, your symptoms indicate that. Clearly, this is the answer. Just take testosterone. Nothing else will replace it. Absolutely nothing. No peptide, no pill, no nothing that somebody is marketing that is going to take the place of it. Lifting weights are things that we should be doing in conjunction with having testosterone levels that are optimal. So if you're on TRT, you should lift weights. If you're not on TRT, you should lift weights. That's a given. And we don't have to, make that in lieu of. But to answer that again, long-winded, is that yes, lifting weights can acutely increase testosterone levels, but it's not going to stay there. And it's not going to elevate to a level where you're like, oh my God, I feel like the man right now, because that will start to diminish over the course of the day.
I want to talk about the black market in an experimental way. When I was on it, I got prescribed 100 milligrams of testosterone cypionate per week, and then I had to inject it on Mondays, and then come Wednesday, Thursday, I had to do 50 of HCG, and I never understood that because I'm like, if I'm already 40 and my stuff is shut down, why am I putting HCG in my body to elevate it back up? Didn't make sense to me. But I thought, like most men do, well, if a little's good, well, let's see what we can do outside of that. So I did experiment. I experimented with things like Anadrol 50. I ballooned up. My face was completely round. I loved what we would call traditional cycle of DECA and D-ball and test. And so I experimented because I went my whole life without doing it. So I'm like, motherfucker, it's your 40s. Let's have some fun here. I want to talk about the responsibility of men not doing that. How important is it for them to find the right doctor? Because some doctors are going to put the cream on them and they're going to get nothing from what I fucking heard. And I'm not asking you to advocate it, but is it okay for some guys to go, I've been doing this for 7-8 years. I found my sweet spot is 125 milligrams every 4 days. And that's what I do. And I get it from a guy. I'm not asking you to advocate that, but what is the right damn way to go? Because some guys, they don't have insurance to pay for this, and they're not going to go to their doctor, pay an arm and a leg, and it might be cheaper to go somewhere else. How is your overall viewpoint of this, the need, and then how they do it?
That is very important because I'll say the way not to go is through your GP and through insurance, because insurance has so many restrictions, and that arbitrary range of testosterone that we were talking about, your insurance wants you to be like in the gutter below that range to qualify for testosterone. And if it covers it's such a hot mess that also, general practitioners, they're great. We need them for a lot of things. Hormone optimization is not their specialty. So I'm not going to go to a cardiologist to do knee surgery. It's just not what he's meant to do. Mm-hmm. So you want to go to a clinic or a telehealth company. We work with Merrick Health. They're great. But you want to go to somebody who understands what men need, but what they don't need. And so in Florida, where I am, there's like clinics every 5 minutes. You could walk in, write your name on a piece of paper, and they'll hand you whatever steroid you want. Like, it's like the Wild West. And there's a lot of cookie cutter protocols that they will prescribe men at various telehealth clinics across the country. And that includes HCG. It includes maybe Clomid, peptides, and an estrogen blocker. Not all men will need that. The best thing if you need testosterone is just to start with testosterone. And if fertility is a concern, that's another discussion. It's dependent on when a man is looking to conceive, because he doesn't need to stay on HCG if he's not planning on having kids for over a year from now. So not all men do well on HCG. The only other thing that it is used for is to maintain the size of the testicles. If they shrink on testosterone, not every guy's balls shrink. And I tell them, yo, it makes everything look bigger.
Rich Piana in the chat.
Yeah, like it does. Rarely do I see any women saying like, oh my God, I love a big sack, like yes, like they're on the outside of your body for a reason. Like your body even is like, I don't want these things. So, you know, some guys care about it. I have a couple clients that do. I give them shit for it, but whatever. But that's the only other thing that it's used for. And no man should be on enclomiphene whatsoever. There's going to be arguments all the time in the TRT space on that, but that stuff is straight poison for guys. It has way too many side effects that come along with it. And then blocking estrogen came from the bodybuilding world where, similar to this arbitrary range of testosterone, there's this cutoff of where estrogen is deemed too high. Estrogen is actually needed for guys, just like women need testosterone. Men need estrogen because it's anti-inflammatory, it's cardioprotective, it's neuroprotective. And if we smash that or suppress it, it can be very detrimental to a man's health. And the way to compare that or to think about that is when women go through menopause, they lose estrogen. So what happens in menopause? They gain belly fat, they become more insulin resistant, their bone density goes down. Those things can happen to men as well if they're on these estrogen blockers for a very long time. All the studies that showed the benefits of testosterone replacement were not with men on estrogen blockers, but a lot of clinics just, that's part of the protocol and that's what they give out. And none of my guys are on any of that. And when it comes to the cream, the only cream that is very good is the scrotal cream. So the gels and the stuff that's applied elsewhere, I would not go down that road. Cream and injections are literally the only delivery methods that I would have a guy go with. And the cream, when it's applied scrotally, that skin is 8 times more permeable than anywhere else. It needs to be applied twice a day, but it can be beneficial for men who are overweight because it does convert into DHT. So testosterone can convert into DHT through an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, or it gets converted into estrogen through an enzyme called aromatase. When a guy is very overweight, he already has a lot of body fat and there's a lot of aromatase swimming there. So if he goes on injections, that has a higher conversion to estrogen, which is not bad when it comes from exogenous testosterone, but when he's already very overweight, a lot of those reactions I was talking about earlier can happen. So if he goes on the cream until he loses the body fat, it'll be more preferentially pushed towards DHT, which can be responsible for libido. So if he's very overweight, he likely has a very low sex drive. So that can help in that instance. And he won't experience the same side effects as he would on injections until he drops his body fat. And then when he gets leaner, if he wants to switch to injections, he'll probably feel a lot better. But if he wants to stay on the cream, he can as well. But yeah, those are the only 2 delivery methods that I would ever advise a man to go on. And they keep trying to make new ones like patches and pellets and nasal sprays and God knows what else they'll come out with next, because you can't patent a hormone. So you have to somehow monetize the delivery method so you can charge for it.
Yeah, guys, and just the needle. Just get used to it.
Yeah, that too.
last thing. So we talked about the synergistic effect between the 3 categories. You got sleep, you have food, you have testosterone, mindset. If all 3 of those are destroyed, and as a guy, you're gonna feel less like grr and go out and fucking dominate and conquer. And your mood can be absolutely affected by the shit food that you eat, the lack of sleep, the lack of testosterone. If somebody's coming to you, it's still difficult. You could plan them the best diet plan, best workout, TRT specialist, this and that. I will say from experience, until you get shit dialed in, your fucking mindset to get that right it's a killer. It's a killer. How are you approaching that? You got people who come to you, and I don't want to dumb it down by saying they're just not feeling it. That's downplaying it. It's a world of misery when your head is not in the game. Do you work with people's heads and be like, hey, listen, this is where your mind has to be. This is where your focus has to be. I mean, motivation sucks. discipline is key, but discipline is hard as shit. So how do you approach that, which I think is the most important out of all of them, because you could do everything else, and if your head's not in it, you're going to fuck it up, and you're going to be off track. How do you address the lack of manhood we feel when it comes down to our heads being in the game?
Personal development is a part of what we work on, and we want men to be unbreakable when it comes to adversity, because shit's gonna happen. Life is gonna happen. Like, there's always going to be a party, there's gonna be a death, there's gonna be something's gonna happen, and you want to have the ability to be completely unshakable when these things happen, which means that you can do what needs to get done when it comes to your family, but also you don't have to go off the rails on your diet and succumb to weakness when shit like this happens. And accountability is our answer to that, because it's crucial. So we don't do like once a week check-ins and then, see you later. Like, we are on our clients pretty much every day. So they talk to me, they talk to one of my coaches. We make sure that if they get in their head, they feel comfortable telling us, I fucked up, I did this, I faced this. We will provide them with the truth. So we are very honest about the fact that we're very honest and we're very transparent. They have to be ready for that. We ask them how they prefer to communicate. We ask everything about their personal lives. Is their spouse on board? Are their friends on board? What do they have to navigate? Because socially, you're going to get resistance if you hang out with people who just want to drink and party all the time. If your spouse is not on board and you get shit for not wanting to drink alcohol or wanting to eat something or go to bed to get to the gym early, that's something that we have to help you navigate and handle. We don't leave you hanging out to settle your own shit, because we go through this with a lot of guys. But those are real world things that I think the younger coaches haven't experienced yet, that maybe they're not prepared to help their clients navigate through. Plus, our price tag for coaching makes people pay attention, because they know they are working with the best. We will absolutely guide them to where they need to be in the best possible path. They have to be willing to do the work. And if they're willing to do the work, they're going to see a lot of success, because we will not let them fail. Because when shit like that comes up, there's only so much that obviously we can do from afar, but we can absolutely equip them with the ability to navigate those things. And yes, testosterone can help that, but you don't have to go on TRT to work with us. We do address everything else. But I will say, when a man gets healthy and he confronts his personal health and his physique, and he looks in the mirror and he's like, you know what? I don't want to look like this anymore. When I enter a room, I want to command respect just by how I look, just by how I fill out my clothes, so that I can do business. I can show up as the best father, husband, whoever that I want to be, that I know I can be. And then you bring testosterone along after all of that's been achieved, his entire demeanor changes. These guys become so much more confident, more assertive, more decisive. Like the way they talk even over Zoom, like the light in their eyes comes back because they have their health in order, and then they have their hormones in order. And it's just like that's the shit that I cry over, because when men are able to actually do the work to change themselves, and then we can help them, give them their life back. When you ask me like why men's health, that's why. When we see those changes and those guys turn into that.
Let's talk about this really quickly. This is your Silverback Summit. Run through it. What is this? When is this? Why should people go?
So the Silverback Summit is a men's health event that I created because there was no men's health event that exists to provide the men with the truth about everything that you and I discussed today. Because there's all these women's health conferences and women's health certifications. There are medical conferences that talk about men's health. I've applied to speak at many of them. I've spoken at one. I've gotten denied at many because what I had to say, well, we already have that covered, but they don't. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to create my own event, because then I can bring together my network of TRT physicians, my network of nutrition, fitness people, business coaches, and we can openly talk about what men are struggling with and provide them with the community of other guys who are either going through the same thing, have gone through the same thing, because guys do crave community. They just don't talk about that, because there is a statistic out there. 27% of guys don't have close friends. 47% don't feel that they can share sensitive information with anybody. And that's a problem. And men need that. And they need to realize they're not alone with some of the issues that they're experiencing. And they're not succumbing to being weak if they want to consider testosterone. So this event brings all those together in one room. And I threw a really good fucking party. So it's basically like a party with some education on the side. And it's just a lot of fun. And this is the third year that we're doing it. It's in Phoenix, Arizona, November 15th and 16th. So I suggest you guys come.
And here it is for the viewing audience. It's silverbacksummit.com. It's Silverback Summit. You can take a look at it here. Got an intro video, take me to the tickets, all this. Go ahead and check this out. All right, last question.
Yeah.
What the fuck does this all do for you? I know that you feel good about when you're helping people. You're in an industry that's saturated. You're in a highly competitive industry where everybody thinks that they have the right answer. You're in almost a male-dominated industry. Females, a lot of them don't take them seriously. You get teary-eyed and you feel overly emotional when somebody does make success. All that. What does it do for you? Because you're in an industry where you have to practice what you preach, so you walk the talk of it. It's draining because when you're coaching somebody else and you're crossing those boundaries of talk to me about your personal life and this and that, you get a lot of that transference of, oh, well, now that means Ali could be my therapist. And that just is very fucking draining. In the grand scheme of it, this has to be more than a passion. It has to be a part of you. What does this do for you at the end of the day or at the end of the month or day by day? What does it do for you?
I've never been asked that way. I feel that this allows me to be a part of something bigger than myself, especially with the summit, because now I can share with the world that you guys don't have to internalize these things and there is a place to go. And for me, it brings me happiness to know that men have a place where they know that they can operate at the best version of themselves. And that probably stems from being a child of divorced parents, having a very compromised relationship with my father, where I saw this is not the model of fatherhood. So for these guys, whether they're a father, they're a dog dad, or a brother, whatever relationship they have with a person, that they have the ability to show up the best they can. And I don't see anybody else doing it the way that I'm doing it. I see others who want to, and I actually don't see that as a competition. I see that as, fuck yes, let's get more people spreading this message and showing guys that they are just as important as women's health and those types of topics as well. So if I die tomorrow, I know I made a difference and an impact, that I provided something that nobody else was doing, no medical organization, delivering it in a way that only I know how, which is very unfiltered and sarcastic and crass, but also very heartfelt.
That was close. That's not the answer I want, but I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. You touched on it a little bit. So we have Ali, the little girl who has daddy issues. And Ali is now, it's called performance for acceptance. Most girls will marry a guy who is either like their dad or not like their dad because of the counteracted of, well, I shit test my father. He left, so I'm going to shit test this guy to see how much he could take. Or I shit test my dad, and he stayed, so he loves me, so I'm going to shit test this guy, whatever. There's a little girl, and there's a woman. When the little girl, who's Ali, has daddy issues, and she is in this saving men's lives, does that fuel the adult woman that you are and your ego, which is not a bad thing, not the negative ego, but the ego of accomplishment says, I fucking did it again. And does that validate you when you are, not them, not the men who are coming to the table and they're walking away, finally seeing their abs, fixing shit with their wives and all of a sudden this, but do you sit there and feel an ego, a positive ego at the end of this saying, I do have validation because I help someone. I personally am not one of those people who says fuck other people for validation. We do need humans to validate our interactions with them. What validation do you get from such massive accomplishments with such high volume of men?
I geniusly created a career that provides the male validation that I never got. So Yes, that's probably more of the answer that you're looking for, because I'm very much a word of affirmations person. So when I get messages from guys that are very heartfelt as to what I've done for them and they're so thankful and it's obviously very positive, that is what fills my cup for me. Because I'm like, cool, I got validation. What I'm doing is actually correct instead of criticism, even though I get a lot of criticism, but you know what I'm talking about.
That's awesome. I love that. I love when people can pour themselves into something because that's authentic. That is congruency of words and actions matching, and somebody's actually doing a passion. That's fucking fantastic. Silverback Summit is the next event you have coming up. It is November. Give me the dates again, please.
15, 16. I hope you come. Otherwise, I'll be very pissed.
Well, is what it is. Fucking fantastic. Guys, this was another Rants of Izzo production from here on Spreely.com with the conversations. Ali Gilbert, check her out on Instagram, the Ali Gilbert. I got a lot out of this for me personally, and that's why I love having these conversations, because they're fucking selfish. I don't care about you listeners, but I mean, you guys get some benefit out of it, but this is me getting a chance to actually ask the experts in fields about shit. More coming up. Don't forget, join us live every Monday through Friday on Spreely.com and the rantsofizzo.com. I don't know what we have coming up in the next couple of months, but we got some stuff for you. Before the Badge, go buy that to support the show. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wordsmatterpublishing.com. That's Before the Badge, the book I wrote. Go to Spreely.com, sign up for the social media we have there. Do not forget, it's free fucking speech. You will not be censored. End of story. And then go check out the other shows on there, like the Burn Pit Podcast, Report and Opine, the Shannon Joy Show, the Dumb Show, and all that other damn good stuff. Guys, I'll see you on another episode of the Rants of Izzo and on Conversations. Go out and help somebody today. And if you can't help them, just don't fucking hurt them. It's as simple as that. See you guys later on.